Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Hey, today we have with us Dan Woerheide, who is a marketing and business coach. Welcome to the program, Dan.
Hey, thanks, Mike. I'm glad to be here.
Hey, so just give us a little bit of a background. I know that when you hear the phrase, I'm a marketing and business coach, that's pretty broad. So give us a little bit of a background on what brought you to starting your firm and who specifically you work with.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So, well, again, first of all, I'm excited to be here. So thanks again.
You're welcome.
My focus is on message and brand development positioning. I'm actually a story brand certified guide, and we can talk a little bit about that as we go. I think it'll play a good part in it. But that I focus on helping women, female founders, women in business, and veterans because I am a veteran.
Neat. So is there a, and I love that because now we're starting to dial in, right? Because you can, I teach marketing for a few schools and I make this comment a whole lot when you talk about target audience, and you can say, if you were a owner of a car dealership, your target audience would not be anyone who drives a car. Right? Because so many times people feel like, just come on, let's go. So you could say, I'm a marketing business coach. Anybody that has a business, wants to start a business, has ever started. No, you need to dial it in. So veterans and women owned, now we're starting to get somewhere. So now, it makes me think this, and I'm certain that this is the case, but not the only case, but I'll bet you work with female veterans, and now that becomes, a double-edged benefit.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. And just to be completely honest, I struggle the same way a lot of people do, in that I'm not ready to just move to that narrow of an audience of just female veterans. And it probably has a little bit to do with just where I'm positioned. A man in today's world, I think that's a difficult leap to make. But there's reasons that I'm in that audience already.
So let's kind of dig in a little bit deeper there. I want to tie in your story brand certified guide classification. But when someone would hear veteran or business coach, whether it's female or veteran, but the point is when you're working with someone, what is it that you're doing for them? Are you helping them start a business for the first time? Are they making $1 million and you're going to help to take them to 5 to 7 to 10 million? What does that look like? Well,
the answer to your question is simply yes, but it depends on, so I have a wealth of community that I've engaged with, and really I'm willing to dig in wherever you need me most. But from the story brand certification perspective, what I'm really doing is to help people in all phases of business to more clearly communicate their purpose so that they can connect with their audience. It's really about tying into their customers' stories so that they can engage them at that level. So they're not bragging about their business anymore. They're talking about how they're helping their customers thrive.
Exactly. Oh, neat. So are you finding that your clients typically are established or at a certain level in their business before they need that? Or is this something like I would suspect you better have that messaging foundation down pat $1?
Yeah. So, that's a great point. And I see a lot of both, honestly. And it really, it ties into the marketing channels that I'm looking into. So for instance, LinkedIn, I tend to connect with more established businesses. And when I'm out doing presentations about the story brand framework itself, the 7-part marketing framework that they use or that we use to help build these messages, that is more established businesses. But if I'm on Facebook or maybe I catch something on Instagram, some of those that I'm connected with there are early stage, and they present a different set of problems. They know they want to focus on how can we get our message right early. Yeah. But there's just so many businesses out there, Mike, that this hasn't been something that has been in the forefront of the marketing industry for really that long. And so they've got the traditional model out there where we're trying to overload our customers with all the information we can on our website to establish ourselves as an authority and talk about why we're the best choice. So this is, I think, still fairly, in the grand scheme of things, new.
Yeah.
Leading with storytelling. So,
well, and I think that it's new. But I think if you, because I read Donald Miller's book, The Building a Story Brand, and he says this harkens back to 2,000 years of human, development. So it's not new necessarily, but it's new on the scene of, marketing strategy. And you hear about storytelling and story selling and things like that, and it makes sense. And so I would like to ask, when you can tie in, what in the world? What do you mean 2,000 years of? Because how does the brain relate to story or explaining something rather than just bullet point, buy my stuff?
Man, that's great. And yes, I absolutely agree. First of all, it's fairly new in the marketing world or the marketing strategy side of things, but you're right. It's more than 2,000 years, people have used stories to engage their audiences. And it's because every brain, and this is directly from Donald Miller, I'm quoting him, but every brain is designed to engage in story. We remember things around us based on the stories, or our minds associate stories with the events that are occurring around us. That's how we tend to remember things that have happened in our lives. But so story is how we process information around us.
Yeah,
that's the gist of it.
Well, I know I find myself when I am listening to someone speak, maybe a webinar, and you just hear, them talking. Then all of a sudden when they start going, oh, you know what, that reminds me, last week I had this one, and you feel yourself perking up. Yeah. So, and I know that story brand is not necessarily, and I like to say this when I talk about storytelling or story selling, it's not once upon a time story necessarily, but we do find ourselves perking up when you have someone starting to explain something, whether you want to think of it as a story or even a case study. Hey, that reminds me, I had this one client once and what they did, and they had this problem and what we solved, and when you can explain it that way. So talk a little bit about when someone hears story brand and they feel uncomfortable, like my business isn't a once upon a time. How am I going to tie that into getting more business? So how does that rationale work?
Yeah, that's really good. So the first thing I think is important to make a distinction in that it's not about the story that you're telling. It's about your customer's story and being able to share that with the world. So really getting back to how is it you're serving your customers? And I say serve on purpose just because it aligns with my own values and how I want to serve others. But it starts with just opening a story loop for people in their minds and helping them to realize how they can be their own hero. Each one of us wakes up every day wanting to be the hero of our own lives. So if your company comes along and starts bragging about all the great things you're doing, that's great. But right now, they're looking for someone that can guide them to win the day. So if you have a product or service that can help them solve a problem, it's about communicating how that product or service will improve their lives.
Well, it reminds me of the old, I heard this from Brian Tracy years ago at one of his presentations. What's everyone's favorite radio station? Do you know that?
I don't.
Okay, so one time I use this all the time, but one time I remember I was saying this in front of a presentation at a Chamber of Commerce, and there was a group of business owners there, and one of them had already done some introductions, and he was like a manager of a radio station. So I was making this point, and I was like, okay, so raise your hands. What's everyone's favorite radio station? And no, Tom, it's not your station. And, chuckle, haha. But anyway, everyone's like, oh, and they start naming off channels here in the local area in Denver. And I'm like, nope. Everyone's favorite radio station is WIIFM. What's in it for me? And if we can broadcast and advertise on that frequency and channel, that's what you just said. And I think that people need to realize that. And if you go to 10 websites right now and we were, sharing screens and we could go, okay, let's just randomly pick website one from whatever. I'll bet you that it would be 9 out of 10 websites are, we're the best and we have and we and I and it needs to be, don't you don't you, as a entrepreneur, feel frustrated when, and you need and you deserve, and now all of a sudden, it flips the stage. So talk a little bit about that, what's in it for me concept, but why is it that people kind of tune out the I'm the best and we've got 30 years experience, you should choose us?
Oh man, that's a great question, and I think it alludes to and I'll just speak it as clearly as possible, that we have to be constantly talking about the problems that we know our customers are facing, our clients are facing, and that if you're not tuning into that problem, then they're not hearing you through all of the noise, because what you have to say doesn't stand out as a way to help them, again, survive and thrive. So the basic concepts of what the brain helps us do each day is, number one, it helps us to survive and thrive, and then it shuts down if we're asked to burn too many calories to try and process information. So that's when we start digging into our daydreaming status. We go to daydreaming as a way to avoid burning extra calories. Mm-hmm. And so when you come along and you're bragging, and I just call it bragging for simplicity, I know that that's not what most people are trying to do. But when you come along talking about all of the things that you can do and all of the things that you've done, you're not talking about my problem and helping me understand that the what's in it for me is, to your point.
Yeah, and and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think people consciously think, wow, this person is talking about themselves. I don't relate to that. I think that it's just an inherent feeling, and it just kind of like tunes out and they move on. So we need to know that's happening, but I don't think that people even are picking up and recognizing that. But every time we do it, it's not serving us, because we need to make sure that relationship is being built. And you did use the word serve earlier, and I really resonate with that. I've interviewed Bob Berg a few times on my podcast, and the Go-Giver and the Go-Giver Influencer, and that whole methodology. And it just really works when you can give results in advance, or give or serve or teach or educate. It comes off so much different than the next person they're talking to, who is all about scarcity and bye-bye and deadline.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and that's why I choose to call myself a coach, is because I really am passionate about mentoring and teaching others, and that there's just so much value in being able to give back or give first. I'm also part of another community of entrepreneurs and startups, and that's the values there align the same way. It's about giving first, helping others, and making friends, right? And if we can do that, then all of us can be successful.
Yep, because people don't know how much you care or they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, and that all ties in, and we can think of probably 9 other cliches, but that really, really works. Hey, so let's kind of dive in and dial it in a little bit deeper on what we were talking about earlier, which is like a veteran or a woman-owned business, one of those two. But think about a client you've worked with pretty recently, without mentioning names or details, but what were they struggling with, and what was it after they came through your process? Were they able to go, epiphany, aha moment, this has done what? Oh, man.
So,
you said, oh, man, so we've only got a few more minutes. It sounds like an hour and a half long response, which I'm sure we could talk for like 4 more hours on all the success, but let's pick one.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the biggest struggles is feeling like they're able to be seen and heard, in business. So through their marketing, they're not standing out typically, is what it looks like. And they really want to know what they can do to position themselves better. And a lot of times it looks like, revamping marketing collateral. And there's a couple problems associated with just approaching it from, hey, I need a new website.
Yeah.
It's because it's not changing the story, or they're not incorporating the story into how they're communicating. And there's just so much noise out there that they can pay a lot of money and they can get more clients. But there's a better way. The storytelling component, whether you follow the story brand framework and you hire one of us as guides to help you, or you just follow someone else who's into storytelling through marketing, being able to incorporate that will help you stand out, save money in marketing. And that's the end result, is being able to save money in marketing. Sure, it's an investment up front, but in the long run, you're not paying as much for those customer acquisitions. And ultimately, it leads to being able to grow your profits, your bottom line, and grow your business. So I think that's where you were going with that. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. Can you think of a specific example of a client that before they worked with you was experiencing a pain point, and then after they got their message clarified, what did they report back? That just magically something was happening, or was it just a sense that when they were speaking with people on the phone, their messaging and their delivery was just really dialed in well? What are some of those kind of results?
Okay. Well, and I'm just going to say yes.
Yeah.
I think the best example I can give you is I was working with a young woman who, and this is where the business coaching comes in, is because as we walk through the process of getting clear on her messaging, we also identified some points where there was some lack of self-confidence, and being able to speak and think clearly about your purpose in business and be able to share that with your audience helps with the confidence part, helps you really dial in to who you are. And so I incorporate this authentic piece, this authenticity, because I think people are struggling with remaining authentic while still trying to stand out in their marketing. They feel like they have to adapt to what others' societal perceptions are, and that's simply not true. So gaining that additional personal confidence, and being able to have a conversation with people, whether it's on the phone or in person, that is truly authentic and engaging at the same time, is probably one of the best examples I have. So identifying the processes within the business, as well as being true, or at least identifying truly what your purpose is, because a lot of people haven't taken those steps as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So what do you recommend if someone is listening to this going, I wonder if my messaging or my website is okay? I think it's fine, but what is the next step that you would recommend that someone could do just to make sure that everything is looking good? Maybe do you offer a free consultation or an audit or an assessment, something like that?
I do, Mike. You can go to coachdanw.com. And you can schedule a phone call with me. I'll do a free website audit. It's very, it's not overly in depth. We're not going to go through all the SEO components. We're just going to take a look at your website from a story brand perspective, and I'll offer my advice. That's completely free. The first thing, though, I would recommend people do is to hop out online. You can do it from my website as well if you go to Products and Services. Get a copy of Building a Story Brand, the book by Donald Miller. And that'll give you an outstanding overview of some of the things we talked about today, but it goes much more in depth. And then from there, of course, there's an online workshop or an in-person workshop that Donald Miller also offers. But if you need some help engaging at a different level, or you just don't want to take the time, whatever that looks like for you, then you can also schedule that through me.
Perfect. Well, I can't recommend the book highly enough either, because I've read it through at least 2 to 3 times, and probably another couple where I just look at my highlights. So excellent book. And I'll make sure that your website link is in the show notes. So thank you so much, Dan. It was really great talking with you, and I appreciate you coming on the show today.
Awesome. I appreciate you having me, Mike. I really do.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.